Hi there, and welcome to this Yin Yoga practice. I'm Devi, this is Conrad, and we're going to lead you through a sequence to cover all of the major target areas of the body with Yin Yoga postures and spend a little bit of extra time today on the Sleeping Swan pose. So Conrad will show the prop-free versions. I will show you some of the propped and modified versions of the postures. So let's get started in Child's Pose. And taking these first few moments to feel your breath, to feel the back of your body stretching. Feel your hips, check in with your hips and your legs and your knees. And here in your child's pose, you can always have a prop underneath your forehead if that makes the pose something you can sink into a little bit more. So a pillow, a block. Good, and now releasing and coming up and making your way into butterfly pose. So sitting with the soles of your feet together and coming forward over the legs. So you can go without props over the legs. You can have your legs farther forward or closer back. Or you can use props to your heart's content. Maybe something under the seat, maybe something underneath your forehead or your arms or under your knees. So here's a variation with props under the seat, under the knees, and a pile of blocks for the forehead if you wanted to max out your props. And so finding a pose that you feel like gives you just enough sensation to be able to soften into it so that you don't feel like you're stretching too much, but also that you don't feel like you're too bored. And so sometimes that support under the head can push you out of the pose a little bit too much, so that you don't feel enough sensation. We're resting here for 3 minutes. And at this point, after about that first minute, notice what has changed from when you first came into it, and see if you can breathe into another layer, another level of sensation. See if you can soften through another layer of tension. And now slowly release the pose. Bring your spine upright and continue down onto your back, resting on the back for 1 minute. As you rest back, take any comfortable position. Legs can be bent or straight. And feel the energy moving through the body. Feel the effect of that pose in your body, in your spine, in your arms and legs. Notice what's happening in your hips, in your lower back. And now bending the knees, hug them into your chest, coming up and taking it into half butterfly pose with your right leg forward and your left leg bent. So you can come straight forward over the leg or veer to the inside of the leg a little bit or veer toward the outside of the leg a little bit. And propping options are plentiful. As much lift as you like under your seat. And if you lift your seat a lot, then your hands might need some more support so that the ground isn't so far away from you. And what else can happen when you prop yourself up pretty high is that the knee gets to feel unstable, that it starts to kind of want to bend backward, and that can feel like too much. So an additional prop under the knee. And propping the head, if you have some kind of large pillow, sofa cushion, or a yoga bolster, might feel quite nice. And the target area of this pose, just in case it's not very obvious, is the back of the leg, the back of your right thigh. Those things called the hamstrings. Staying connected to your breath as you breathe into where you're feeling the sensation in the pose. Through the breath, bringing more awareness to what's happening inside your body. And slowly release the pose and take a moment to pause when your spine comes upright. Feel what's happening, feel what the body is doing to respond. And go ahead and change sides. Notice how this second side is different from the first side. And slowly release. Pause when the spine comes upright. And continue on down to rest on your back. Any comfortable position. Close the eyes when you get there. And notice the feeling inside. Sometimes a deep pull toward stillness, toward just sort of being, feeling, and observing. And now bending your knees, wrap the arms around the legs and lift your head up toward your knees to squeeze up into a little ball. Wrap the arms tight, so maybe you'll hold opposite forearms or even opposite elbows. and release down, and we'll come up to seated. You can either roll to one side or roll forward and back. And let's do a little exploration of the Sleeping Swan pose today, otherwise known as pigeon. And we'll start with the right leg forward, and I'm going to talk you through some variations where we'll do each variation about 20 seconds a piece. And those of you who are already at the wall to do a different variation because you don't like this pose, I think you might be able to find something, some of you, that works for you better with the variations that I'm going to talk you through. However, I don't want you to move into any places of pain where your body tells you it's a bad idea. So please take care of yourself, but do consider, if you have the mantra in your mind, I don't do pigeon, to maybe try some of these variations today anyway within a boundary of safety. So let's start out with this variation where we're kind of doing the traditional Sleeping Swan. We're going for centered with the knee and foot at about shoulders to either side of you, and flexing the foot, bringing the right toes back toward you, and trying to keep the hips at this level. That's really the thing that often makes this pose what some people love and some people hate. So you might be in a happy spot right now, and this is where you've always liked doing your Sleeping Swan. Some people will do this pose much more comfortably with some support under this right hip. So if you're using support, then try it with something under the hip. Now let's try to do something totally different, which is to lean over on your right hip and then bend your back leg. And we get into the place where it's pretty asymmetrical, and you can start to come forward over this right knee, or even slightly toward the inside of the knee or the outside. And what we're going for in all these variations is the stretch of the glutes, the right buttocks. So as you explore, see if one angle or the other does a better job of targeting your glutes, or if none of them, if it's just not effective to do it this way with the back leg bent. But often people who have knee pain in this hips even variation will have less knee pain, or hopefully none, if they're finding the pose they want, by doing this asymmetrical sitting over on the hip version. And some people will take this front foot into more like in line with the front edge of their mat, and if that's in your range of motion, give that a try right now. And then this is harder to do when you're trying to keep your hips level, but when you're leaned over onto your hip, it might make it more possible. And sometimes just that right angle somehow gives a little more leverage to be able to get the stretch as you come forward. So that variation is called deer, when you have your back leg bent and you're leaning over on the hip. You can bend that back leg up as much as you want. So let's come on into some other variations. So back up to something like level in the hips, but you can also play around with this. Actually, let's play around with that first. Is if I bring my hips more to the left or more to the right, just explore this range of motion. And is there one angle of the hips that gives me a better glute stretch and or less knee pain? And as I come forward, once I've settled into where I want my hips to be, then I'm going to bring my torso to the left and feel that out, and then bring it over to the middle and over to the right side. And explore that. You can go back and forth a bit and see what works best for you today, right, left, or middle. And of course you have the options of head down, head on a block, or staying here on the elbows. Okay, so that's the range of what we're playing with here. One final suggestion is to take a moment to explore this kind of mega propped version, since I'm doing lots of props today, where you prop your hip up enough that you can get your knee at this kind of right angle. And whoa, the floor got really far away from me, so I need more support of some kind, blocks or more pillows under my hands. And there's something about this position, it actually, for me and for some people I've shared it with, it creates a deeper stretch. It doesn't back you up out of the pose, and it has to do with the fact that you're able to bring this foot up more. So let's hold whatever variation you found the most interesting for 2 more minutes. And if you're still finding it, still exploring, then take your time. And while we're here, I will talk about this question that comes up a lot in this family of poses, is the front foot, whether or not to flex it. And there's a, I want to use the word myth. There's a myth in the yoga world that this foot needs to be flexed in order for the knee to be safe. It might be the case for you. For some people, it makes the knee feel safer. For other people, it does the opposite. It makes the pose more intense and takes the stretch away. It makes it feel too young. It makes it feel like you can't relax. So experiment with a relaxed foot or a flexed foot and see what you like. There's not a hard and fast rule about which to do, except if you're having pain and one or the other relieves pain, then that is the rule. You should work with that one. And slowly release. Make your way back to downward dog or whatever sort of transition you'd like to make if you want to go through child's pose. Just take a few moments to feel what that posture did, especially if you were doing a variation new to your body. Notice what the effect is. And as you are ready, take it into the second side. Drop the knees, slide your left knee forward. And because the two sides of the body are not exactly the same in anyone, we're going to do that same exploration on this side. And you may find yourself in a different place. And that's okay. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with your body. It's just we have natural asymmetries in our bodies, and one side might want something different than the other. So as we come to the center, try the traditional variation with the hips kind of level. And if you are inclined to think a prop might help under your hip, try that. And some people like this foot, I didn't talk about this on the other side, but some people like that foot farther forward or farther back. Farther forward generally increases your external rotation and might increase the stretch. So let's now take it into the hip over to the left and the deer pose with the back leg bent. And then you can come down over the leg at a variety of angles. And now we're targeting the left glutes, left buttocks, and play around with it to see if there's one angle or the other that works better for your body. Okay, and now coming back up and bringing it back with the leg straight again. And let's take it into some angles of the torso. Oh no, first we did the hips. So just bring your hips slightly to the right, slightly to the left. And notice what changes here to each side. And now as you come forward over the leg, let's try it to the right side first. Target area, how's it affected now if you move to the center? And how's it affected if you move it more over the knee? So settling into your variation, propped or not, and we'll start our 2 minutes. And release your pose, coming up, and just sit over onto the left hip, bring the back leg around the front, and come all the way down onto your back and rest. Feeling the rebound. Noticing your breath. And now bending your knees, draw them into your chest. And roll over onto one side for back bending. So choice of seal pose, Sphinx pose, or saddle pose. So Conrad will do the saddle today. And seal pose on straight arms here, or for a mellower choice, down on your elbows. So if you're taking the seal, you can sit in between your feet like Conrad, or you can sit on top of your feet, which works differently for different people's knees. And if you have the range of motion to do both, then you can just try both and see what you like. They're two very different looking poses, but they share the fact that they're back bends and that they have a primary target area of the spine, of the lower back, the sacrum, the lumbar spine. In the case of the saddle, if you have enough tension in your quads and the front of your thighs, you might have a primary sensation there before you will feel it in your lower back, and that's not uncommon. And your legs can be wider or narrower in these back bends, and just about any back bend. Width of the legs is a big parameter that you can change to see what works better for your body. If you're in the Sphinx pose and want to take the last minute up in seal, then go ahead and straighten the arms at this point. And slowly release the pose, resting on your forehead. Place the hands on top of each other and stack the head on the hands, or any version or variation of a belly resting pose that feels good. And feel what's happening in your back. If you've been in that saddle, you'll just slowly make your way out of it, and you can rest on your back or in child's pose. And making your way to child's pose, or if you're on your back, just hug your knees into your chest. And now slowly coming into position for a twist. So lie down on your back and take your knees over to the right side. Knees in and over to the right. You might want to scoot your hips to the left a bit first to make some space so that you can roll more easily onto the right hip. 3 minutes on each side here. Left arm can extend out to the left, any angle that feels right for you, so shoulder level or a little higher or lower. And the variations of the twist are always available. The left knee crossed over the right, or the variation Conrad's doing with his bottom leg straight and just the top knee bent. And release. Slowly come up to the center and slowly shift to the second side. As you settle into the pose on this side, notice how the breath feels. How does the body make space for the breath in this twisting shape? When the ribs and the belly are accommodating the pose. More opening here in the right side of the chest, feeling the stretch perhaps in the chest as well as the spine. And as you feel more into the upper body, you'll notice also the twist in your neck and how you might want to adjust the position of your head to better accommodate that twist in the neck. And releasing the twist, bring the legs back up to the center and straighten your body out for final relaxation position. Consider spreading out to take up as much room as you'd like, arms and legs nice and wide like a star shape, or using pillows under the legs, or putting your legs up on the edge of a sofa or something if you want to have that elevation. And so this practice of yin yoga is sometimes described as a routine of stretching or stressing the joints, stressing and stretching different tissues of the body. And the use of this word stress is used in a different way, of not a bad thing, but a good thing. So eustress rather than de-stress. And this time of relaxing is your time to feel the release of that effort, of that stress, to now feel the contrast of letting go into the effects, into the resulting sensation, into the deep rest that can result from the release of that effort. And as you continue to rest here, soften any remaining remnants of tension in your face, in your hands, your feet, your shoulders or your hips. Anywhere where there might be a bit of residual holding. Anything you don't need to be holding on to right now in the physical body. And now taking a deeper breath into your belly and into your heart. And as you exhale, gently wiggle your fingers and your toes and stretch out into your arms and your legs. And bend your knees and slowly roll over onto one side and make your way up into a seated position. And feeling the spine upright, closing the eyes and taking 3 breaths here with your spine upright. Notice perhaps a sense of aliveness in the spine, of energy continuing to stir, to circulate, to vibrate. And giving voice to this inner vibration, chanting Om together 3 times. Let's bring the palms together in front of the heart. And inhale. Om. That's our practice. Thanks for joining. Namaste. Thank you, Conrad.
Namaste. Thank you.